Welcome, Fulcha, everyone, to NDRC Accelerator Demo Day here at Dogpatch Labs. Let us know where you're tuning in from in the comment box. I have this chat wall beside me so I can see everything that you're saying. I know that there's people that have tuned in from right across the world. I think we've had over 400 registrations, so drop it in and say hello. I think there's Dublin, London, New York. I think I saw Portugal earlier. Kerry, I think, as well. A special welcome to Minister Eamon Ryan and his team at DECC who fund NDRC and who we have a brilliant relationship with. We know that they're tuned in as well here today. So look, here's how today's going to work. We have 7 startups. There'll be 3-minute pitches back to back. And Philip, our Accelerator MD, is going to give you an overview of the cohort in just a few minutes. Also, we wanted to touch on the wider European ecosystem that we're in, because last year was clearly a major inflection point. 1/3 of all unicorns in Europe were created in the last 12 months alone. So we've invited a US fund who's just moved to Europe, Sequoia, to give their perspective, because Ireland has a great opportunity within all of this. We combine this with a panel with some great Irish founders. So it's 90 minutes in total, and I think it's going to be a really interesting session. And to kick things off, I wanted to introduce Suzanne, who has led so many of our programs over the last year, to take just a couple of minutes to share how some of our alumni are getting on and a sense of our overall impact in the last year. Suzanne.
Thanks, Paddy. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to all as well. So as Paddy said, we've just completed 12 months of delivering programs under the NDRC banner in partnership with regional hubs, Portishead in Galway, Republic of Work in Cork, and RDI Hub in Kerry. We've had a phenomenal amount of activity across the network. 75 startups through different pre-accelerators, over 350 through Founder Weekend. We've one coming up this weekend, RDI Hub, 500 office hour sessions, over 1,000 people in masterclasses. So much of what we're doing is not just about the accelerator. It's about ecosystem building activities, the long-term work it takes to build a bigger pipeline of startups. So a special shout out to our regional friends, Portishead, RDI Hub, Republic of Work, and everyone who has participated on these programs over the last 12 months. So in terms of our accelerator cohort last year, how are they getting on? I'm delighted to be able to share that 3 startups who have raised rounds already, totaling 6 million. Another 3 are on the cusp of announcing their rounds. So stay tuned for that announcement. 2 others are at meaningful revenue for startups at this stage, and 1 has been acquired. Collectively, these startups have already created over 65 jobs. So we're really happy with how the cohort is getting on. Really strong performers, way above benchmarks. And 2 quick facts about the current accelerator cohort this year. This cohort you'll see today has the highest percentage of female founders ever in the main NDRC accelerator. Over 50% of the are female co-founded, 4 of 7 startups, and 3 have female CEOs, which standing here, I'm really pleased to be able to share that fact with you. Also, we are committed to keeping everything lean in how we run things. So this year, we'll have the highest quantum of capital invested in NDRC's history in a standard year, with over 14 investments. So more money going directly into entrepreneurship than ever, while at the same time massively ramping up ecosystem building activities as the country across the whole nation. So, in terms of the wider NDRC alumni, we saw some big raises, including 45 million from Neuritas and 30 million by Exogen. We saw lots of acquisitions with highlights including Silver Cloud, Chasing Returns, BoxEver, and many more. Congratulations to all of you alumni out there building great businesses, many of whom have come back and kind of given their time as mentors and speakers, for which immense gratitude. We couldn't run these programs without your support and insights. So it's been a really busy few months, and I hope you got a sense of the impact. Now, I'm going to hand over to Philip to introduce the pitches.
Hi everyone, my name's Philip Reynolds and I'm the Managing Director of the NDRC Accelerator. Recently, I spent 11 years at Workday, where I was a VP of Engineering, seeing the company grow from the early stages through public and beyond. Since 2021, I've participated and helped run the NDRC Accelerator we have here. And I've seen how important the support we provide is to founders, from helping source and hire key talent to helping the 2021 group raise more than €6 million in follow-on funding from investors. This year's cohort features a range of startups, from consumer to B2B. We have 2 Irish CEOs with international co-founders, reflecting the global ambition these companies have. We've also had our first example of a company started at NDRC's Founder Weekend, who went through the pre-accelerator all the way through to the accelerator. So I'll turn you over now to the 7 startups and you'll hear their pitches. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Aisling, CEO and co-founder of Crew. Crew enables you to sell more with AI-driven conversation management. One of our beta customers is a company called VoloPay. They switched from email to WhatsApp as their customer communication channel, and immediately they started closing deals twice as fast. But then they ran into some issues. The reps struggled to manage the 50 parallel customer chats a day, and the lack of visibility into these conversations meant that sales leadership could never accurately report and forecast, and their expensive sales enablement tool could never highlight at-risk deals. So while they have the deal cycle in moving to WhatsApp, they added a day's extra work per rep every week on additional admin alone. And that's why I built Crew. VoloPay immediately saw the benefits. All of the reps' chats were aggregated and integrated with their respective CRM opportunities, providing complete visibility across the company. The automations saved the reps 7 hours a week on manual data entry and tasks. The AI-driven analytics allowed them to see at-risk customers and gave them the opportunity to act to save in those deals. And with the new conversation intelligence, they will receive in-the-minute guidance for how to respond to customers, coaching them to improve their sales performance. We have one competitor, Kubi, who have raised a small seed round. Other players in the space like Gong only focus on voice or email. It is very difficult to take these algorithms and transfer them across. Crew is built from the outset to focus on this unique style of communication. All of our workflows and NLP are tailored for the quick, rapid interactions, shorthand, and emojis of messaging. We are taking a 2-pronged go-to-market strategy. Our entry-level tier, which is the chat and CRM integration, is $25 per user per month, which will be a bottom-up approach. While the higher tier, which is the chat, CRM, and AI guidance, is $100 per user per month, where we'll upsell the lower tier as well as go top-down for larger enterprises. This is a huge market opportunity. There are 8.1 million B2B sales reps globally, giving a total addressable market of $9.7 billion. Taking just 5% of that would be $485 million. We have a great team with all the skill sets needed to win. I built the Asian unicorn PatSnap sales team from the ground up. Adrian, our CTO, previously worked as a software engineer with Siemens and has over 10 years' expertise in AI and privacy projects. While Ju, our CPO, previously managed sales ops and strategy at NASDAQ-listed EverQuote. Since September, we have graduated from Antler, built our MVP, and launched our beta. We have LOIs with a global food delivery platform, as well as strong interest from the largest telcos in Asia and the US. And we are opening our pre-seed round over the next few weeks. But we're not stopping there. It is clear that messaging will be the primary pillar of communication for all of a company's sales, success, and service. Millennials and Gen Z have grown up with this, and the trends are now clear from Asia. Crew will drive the next evolution of customer communication. Let's bring that future into reality together.
Hi, I'm Stephen, co-founder of Filter, and I'd like to introduce you to our very first customer, Bridget. Bridget suffers from asthma. We all know someone like her because chronic lung conditions like asthma and COPD affect 1 in 10 people globally. What's worse is that 1 in 2 of these really struggle to cope with it. And here's why. When Bridget was diagnosed, she was given a prescription for an inhaler, which was invented 60 years ago, a 1-minute demo, and that was it. But Bridget wants to take a proactive approach to her health, so she consulted Dr. Google, but quickly met conflicting information, promised cures, and was no closer to finding something to help. What's worse Today we know this condition is affected by so many things: diet, activity, weather, even mental health. But understanding these and getting support for them is nearly impossible. Introducing Filter, your personal asthma coach. We help you breathe easier, and here is how. When Bridget downloaded the app, she was onboarded by our AI Amelie that got to know her age, her location, her medication program, and a bunch of other information. She then helped her set up any wearables she had. We integrate with things like Oura Ring and Apple Watch, and more specific devices that track things like your lung function. She used this to establish her health score, which was a baseline to build upon, and immediately noticed that she wasn't taking her medication properly. So created personalized nudges for the times she should be doing that. What's even better was when Emily started to get to know Bridget even more, was that when the temperature dropped to below 5 degrees, she noticed that Bridget's health score dropped significantly. So on days such as this, Bridget is alerted to take a reliever inhaler 15 minutes before she goes outside. This has meant a 30-point increase in her health score. And what's even better is that she can finally take her nieces and nephews for a walk again. Using these unique insights, personalized content, and our micro-communities, we are driving meaningful behavior change in how people are managing these conditions, which can be seen through our user cohort quotes. Such as Kim, who says she can now see flare-ups before they happen, and Alan, who simply says he feels more in control of his health. We charge €10 per month subscription and are following successful companies in other verticals, such as fertility with Flow, pre-diabetes with Levels Health, and mental wellness with Calm. But to date, asthma and COPD sufferers have been stuck with tech built for doctors, products locked behind doctor-prescribed prescription programs, and solutions just too broad to give any meaningful insight. Our path to enterprise is through bottom-up sales, similar to likes of Headspace, Hello Heart, and Livongo. To date, in the last 2 months, we've released version 1 of our app with over 30 iterations. We opened up a closed beta and have now 35 active users, and we have a growing waitlist of 1,500 people, which is growing 30% week over week. Andrew and I previously built a startup together. I previously led growth and delivery for Ireland and built a mental health startup, while Andrew has managed some of the largest aviation projects in Europe through Arup and has grown up hacking together projects. We're looking for investors as we onboard our first 1,000 customers, build out the team, build out the product, and secure that first enterprise client. Join us, we're Filter, and we help you breathe easier.
Hello, my name is Hannah Joyce and I'm the founder of Accrue. We help you invest in your employees' careers, resulting in more effective leaders, better managers, and happier employees. Jennifer has been managing technology teams for the last 10 years, with a strong track record and a great rapport with her team. Hiring developers has always been challenging, but she now has a new problem: retaining her existing people. With 2 leavers in the last 6 months, she's now short-staffed and worried about team morale and customer deliverables. So she starts probing during her one-to-ones, and what she hears is that her team are looking for more career development. Jennifer has a problem, an opportunity to solve it, and even the budget to solve it. However, she doesn't have the time or experience to create personal development plans that her team want. But she also knows she could lose them if she doesn't. Enter Accrue. We provide organizations with a live virtual learning platform driven by career ladders. When you sign up to Accrue, you get a needs analysis, which generates your individual learning path, so you can now sign up to frequent and recurring high-quality training sessions that follow your curriculum. And managers like Jennifer can track teams' progress and use the platform as a powerful retention tool for crucial career development. The options on the market today are extremely varied. For online YouTube-style learning, there are sites like Coursera and Udemy. There are many offline options too, ranging from boutique training firms to executive coaches, which are either infrequent or extremely expensive. Modern online products like CoachHub and BetterUp focus on democratizing executive coaching. And while coaching focuses on bringing out skills you already have, Accrue helps you acquire critical new skills. These are complementary products, but we know that new skill acquisition resonates more with our target market of frontline tech talent. We are charging a subscription of €49 per month or $4.99 annually, and we're focused on acquiring small to medium high-growth tech businesses in Europe that don't have a role dedicated to training. The global L&D market is $350 billion, $85 billion in Europe alone, and growing each year. Plus, there are over 25 million software engineers in the world, and more than half of open roles mention an L&D budget of $1,500 on average. We've had some really exciting early adopters at Dentsu, Ocado, and Digital, and we have over 85 verified trainers on the platform. Our first cohort of 10 pilot users started on the platform last week. I have a master's in work psychology from the University of Limerick, and I previously led an L&D team at Officio, the world's largest procurement consultancy, for 3.5 years, where I designed and built a similar product for procurement professionals. I've built all of this tech myself, but I'm now looking to grow the team. 94% of employees say an investment in their career would stop them from leaving their current job. Retain your best people with Accrue. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew, and in the last 3 months, we've processed almost 1 million transactions through our loyalty app, Squid. When most people think of loyalty schemes, they think of this: lots of cards, lots of accounts, all easily forgotten. There's just so many of them, with almost 300 million businesses implementing some form of loyalty scheme. Having a loyalty scheme makes so much sense in theory. They're constantly proven to be the most cost-effective way of increasing revenue, but they suffer from poor engagement. Almost 60% of people don't use loyalty schemes after sign-up, but Squid solves this engagement problem. We call it one-touch loyalty. Here's how it works. For a business, all you need is a Squid tag. No batteries, no Wi-Fi, it works right out of the box. For a consumer, you simply download the app, tap a Squid tag at the counter, and you're done. You've just joined that business's loyalty scheme. And we're seeing incredible results. We're now in over 1,000 locations with over 120,000 app users that we acquired during a global pandemic. And since adopting Squid, businesses are seeing their customers make 10 times more transactions annually, resulting in revenue increases of over 25% for our top businesses. Currently, businesses pay a subscription of €25 a month for the loyalty platform. Squid's also very sticky, with less than 1% churn and each business onboarding over 500 app users. We believe the future of Squid lies in 3 key areas: international expansion, POS integration to unlock more business types, and a platform business model like Shopify's merchant services, where we can add booking, tipping, food ordering, and more, with each transaction generating a platform fee. Focusing on independent coffee retailers has been the perfect entry point for us. We're now getting noticed by other retail verticals like salons, restaurants, and supermarkets whose customers were already using Squid for their morning coffee. This has led to conversations with some of the world's biggest payment companies like Visa, Stripe, and Square about potential partnerships. The competitive landscape for loyalty schemes can be broken down into 2 broad areas: digital loyalty schemes with poor user engagement like Belly and 5 Stars, and fintech solutions with heavy sign-up friction by requiring banking details like Bink and Loyalbee. However, our focus on simplicity in sign-up and one-touch loyalty has differentiated us by driving unique engagement rates. My co-founder Katie and I met on the Ad Astra High Performance Scholarship in college and worked together for 5 years prior to founding Squid. Alongside a number of investors, we've now grown our team to 15 across Ireland and the UK, with an experienced CTO joining us later in the year. Our next step is to raise a seed round to grow to 10,000 retailers, 1 million app users, and to build out key partnerships to monetize our user base. If you'd like to join us on the journey with Squid, please get in touch. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate, a startup founder and a solo parent of 2. So childcare for me is like oxygen. And I've worked with children across 4 continents, so I have this unique global perspective as both a minder and a parent. And I've also had jobs like undercover journalist in Mauritania. So you could say I like a big challenge. 88% of parents now need flexible childcare, and this is proving so challenging to source that 3 out of 4 of them report it's affecting their ability to do their work, to the point that over half the people leaving or changing their job cite childcare as one of the top reasons. Now, there's been many attempts to solve the childcare problem online, but typically they offer only limited scheduling or transactional matching. Childcare needs a total rethink, and we do need to solve this problem. I mean, we don't want people to stop having kids, right? So we built Ugo. Ugo matches parents with minders thoughtfully, and here's how it works. Parents tell Ugo about the layers of childcare that they need, and let's face it, in a given week, that could now be a combination of after-school care for the days in the office, emergency care for the days things go wrong, finding a minder with creative skills, or heck, even just wanting a night off. Then, using the most advanced scheduling tool that online childcare has ever known, parents can view listings that best fit their needs. And because we work with one of the world's leading behavioural psychologists, our matches are based on human stories, not just CVs. But where some of the real magic happens is on the minder experience. In an industry where minders are undervalued, we use a scientific process to bring out the hidden magic in each individual listing. Things like personality traits and soft skills and values. And we give minders the tools that they need to manage flexible schedules, multiple bookings, and seamless payments. We even have APIs to third-party providers for help with things like year-end tax filings, contracting, and insurance. And because minding is often a solo gig, our online interactive community is where minders can come to take a course, sign up for a class, to really connect. Now, we've discovered that the best way to facilitate the needs of working parents is through their employers. So for employers, we have dashboards where they can build a complete picture of parental wellness and retention. Employers pay us a subscription fee so that their employees can access the Ugo platform. And when parents find and pay for childcare, we take 10% on all bookings. We've run closed betas with some progressive firms like Zalando and AIB, and we're at pricing negotiation stage to renew our largest contract. As CEO at this early stage, I'm really humbled to be joined by an amazing team of part-timers and world-class advisors, like the engineer who built the scheduling layer at Skyscanner and a Nelson Mandela Rhodes Scholar of Psychology. We are Ugo, and we're on a mission to ensure parents find their right fit childcare every time, because the kids are worth it, most of the time.
I'm Jack, co-founder and chief prediction officer of Herd. Herd is where you predict what happens next with friends. Will France win the World Cup? Will Tiger roar at St. Andrews? Will Trump return to office in 2024? Not everyone likes to bet or gamble, but we all have a point of view. Take, for example, sports and the lush fairways of Augusta this weekend. 90% of us will use a phone for competitive entertainment, and yet, until now, we've only had 2 options: time-consuming fantasy and the grubby bet. That's why we've built Herd, the home of what happens next. Here's how it works. Make a prediction on anything. Share that prediction with your friends so they can predict too. Compete to win and top the leaderboard. And we're constantly expanding the ways you are rewarded if you win, from virtual NFTs to sports brands and food brands. When it's this effortless, it's easy to see why we have already had more predictions on Herd than people can fill Wembley Stadium. We predict the future of competitive entertainment is allowing you to be finally heard. Now let me tell you a little secret. If a user makes just 2 predictions on Herd, this leads to a 200% increase in retention. This is what good retention looks like on a social app. This is what herd retention looks like by focusing on this magic moment. This and so many other reasons are why we're so excited at Herd. There is a whole new category of startups emerging that allow you to speculate on the future. Sequoia-backed Calci, which has raised over 50 million, allows financial speculators to vote yes or no on world events. So Rare, which is valued at over 4 billion, lets you predict whether football players' performances will make them more valuable. And with Herd, we let anyone and their friends predict simple and fun things and be rewarded for it. We have big momentum and global plans. We've been backed already by Entrepreneur First and NDRC. We've built over 70 iterations of the product. Our brand has generated 2 million impressions across social media with virtually no marketing spend. That buzz has given us thousands of users and is building belief in some incredible commercial partners. I'm delighted to share today that we have just secured commitments of €1 million from strategic angels and high net worths. We're a group of hustlers with a wide range of skill sets. Rob was head of engineering at Cybersmart from pre-seed to post-Series A. James was a product manager at Domino's, one of the world's busiest websites. And I worked at a top law firm to give a unique blend of regulatory, sports, and sales leadership. From football to golf, from politics to reality TV, we make it easy to predict the future with your friends and have fun doing it. We're Herd, the home of what happens next.
Hi everyone, I'm John. I'm co-founder and CEO at Grayscout. E-commerce counterfeiting and IP infringement is a $2 trillion a year problem, and it's impacting every type of business. Take a look at these 2 bars of soap. These digital images look absolutely identical. However, the products behind the image can often be counterfeit. And for one major soap brand, this is a $30 million annual problem in the US market alone. On top of that, they're also racking up massive legal fees, but most concerning is damage to brand equity from negative customer experience. So the problem can really be broken down into 4 broad areas. First, visibility. Thousands of channels, millions of resellers equals billions of listings, so impossible to track manually. Second, verification. Who are these resellers? Where and how did they source my branded product? Third, authentication. Is the listed item even genuine? And fourth, enforcement. It's painfully time-consuming and expensive to take action against infringements. Grayscout solves this problem by enabling brands and IP owners to detect, verify, and enforce against infringing content online. We use pattern matching algorithms to scan across online domains, providing global visibility and detecting relevant listings. We then automate the necessary workflows to verify reseller identity, authenticate product as genuine, and quickly remove unauthorized listings by connecting to IP portals on Google, Amazon, and the various channels. We save these brands on legal costs, increase their sales and revenue, and protect customer trust. IP legal firms are the legacy solution provider. Software solutions tend to link to these existing models, creating slow and ineffective systems. Grayscout uniquely solves the grey market problem using our patent-pending verification technology, decreasing costly enforcement notices by up to 40%, and quickly returning key buy positions and revenue to legitimate products and partners. Most importantly, our technology removes people from the verification loop, unlike any competing solution. We have a SaaS model with plans starting at $650 per month and sliding scale pricing into high 6 figures for global brands. We're competing in the growing brand and IP protection market, which is set to hit $14 billion in the next few years. We're targeting e-commerce teams at consumer product brands, starting with the most highly counterfeited categories. We've recently scored Samsung as a paying customer, and we're also in advanced discussions with several global brands, including Citizen, Spin Master, and Unilever. We're doing over 100K of ARR with 35% quarter-on-quarter growth with new clients. And when we're in, our customers love us. They've been adding new channels and keywords, resulting in 25% month-on-month growth from existing accounts. So I've personally spent the best part of the last decade looking at this problem while providing e-commerce solutions to brands including Seiko and Citizen. Chris, our CTO, was formerly co-founder at Clavis, an e-commerce intelligence platform which was acquired for 119 million. We've just closed a pre-seed round and we're looking to open up a seed round later this year, and we'd love to establish relationships with investors and potential team members in advance. We're Grayscout and we're set to be the #1 solution for e-commerce verification and enforcement.
Welcome to this, our panel on global businesses. I'm going to pass over now and introduce each of the, I'm now got a mic, I'm feeling very important, gents. I am going to pass over to each of our founders to introduce themselves in a little bit more detail about their company as well. So, over to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Suzanne. So yeah, I'm Thomas. I'm one of the founders of Tynes. Tynes is a security automation platform that allows analysts and engineers in security companies automate their repetitive manual tasks. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second, but basically, yeah, we're an Irish company. We've raised about $40 million from various different VCs. We're about 100 people today, and we got started because we were trying to solve a problem that we had when myself and my co-founder worked in industry. The challenge is that security is really hard these days. There's a lot of security tools, a lot of people dealing with alerts, but not a lot of talent. So we developed a platform that allows those people that are on the front lines to automate their own jobs, automate their own repetitive tasks. So we've got a whole lot of great customers, the likes of Irish customers like Bank of Ireland, as well as international customers like Box, McKesson, Canva, Coinbase, and a whole lot of other great people. So we're really enjoying it these days.
And it's you've heard that story before, where a founder is solving their own pain point. It's a brilliant origin place to be. So over to you, Jonathan, if you'd like to give us a bit more about Andopen.
So yeah, Andopen, we're in a business that's probably as old as sin. We're in the gifting business, and we help businesses that want to nurture their communities, the people that power their businesses, to build those relationships through thoughtful acts of care, which is gifting. And we stepped into this space by winning this amazing global contract to take care of this problem for Airbnb and their communities around the world, and have grown off that, having taken seed funding last year. We're now a team of 80. Taking care of gifting for businesses like Spotify and Peloton, more local businesses like Tynes and Intercom. Yeah, that's us.
Fantastic. So anybody out there looking for corporate gifting, Andopen definitely.
We can do it.
Yeah. So over to you, Rafa, if you'd like to introduce Volograms, please.
Definitely. I'm Rafa Pajes. I'm one of the founders of Volograms too. We're a spin-out from Trinity College, and actually my background is not business or anything like that. It's actually science. I did a PhD, and Volograms is basically the result of the postdoc work that we were doing at Trinity. So what we do is that we develop technologies to record people in 3D, so then you can bring them to augmented reality, virtual reality, visual effects, games, and stuff like that. To do this, you typically need what is called a volumetric capture setup, which includes a lot of cameras pointing inwards, green screens, and stuff like that. And we've been doing that with a lot of brands for 4 years, even working with Samsung and some other companies in the UK especially. So right now, some of our work is being exhibited in the National Gallery in London. But actually, the most interesting thing that we've been doing in the last year is actually bringing this technology that only works in the studio, or typically works in the studio, to a mobile phone. So you can do it, solving one of the problems that we think that this metaverse, or whatever you want to call it, has, which is content. Right now, all the content is created by either a developer, by an artist, or a professional in general, using professional tools. And what we want is to enable user-generated content, the same way that you can create content with your phone for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. That's typically the content that we all consume, and the metaverse has that problem.
Yeah.
So we're 17 right now. We've raised a little bit more than €2 million, and we're 4 years old.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. All three, you're very, very welcome. So just to set some context for what we're going to discuss today. Historically, it was seen that as you grew your company, you may need to move to the US to raise capital. Patrick shared earlier that we're at an inflection point with over 100 billion of funds being invested in EU startups. So we're definitely changing. And all three panelists here have elected to stay here and build their global businesses from here. But they're at very different stages and have approached fundraising very differently. So Volograms is, as Rafa said, a Trinity spin-out, and they have raised just over 2 million euros recently, last year, and opened bootstrap for many years before they decided to go out and raise their first round last year.
Yep.
And as Thomas has shared with you, they've raised over $40 million since launching in 2018. So what we're going to explore here is a little bit more about how they've approached fundraising, how they think about that with respect to the global lens. So, Thomas, I'm going to start with you. You've chosen to be based here. How do you think about Ireland as a place from which to grow a global business? And interestingly, how have your investors viewed it as well?
Great. So I think it goes without saying, Ireland is a great place to do business. There's a lot of really inspirational startups that have already gone, blazed the way before us. There's a lot of great talent here that you can tap up from the likes of Intercom or from the likes of Facebook or Google or Stripe and a lot of other people. And a lot of people that have learned that are in fast-growing startups that are prepared to join and blaze the way themselves, which is brilliant. But if I'm giving advice to people who are starting their own venture capitalist journey, I think Ireland is. Don't focus on Ireland as the place that you want to build your unicorn or build that $1 billion business. Think bigger, think global. Bank of Ireland is one target, but Bank of America is the bigger target. The reason I'd say that is that if you want to impress your VCs, if you want to raise from VCs, they're not that interested in the 5 million people in Ireland. They're interested in a global market that's much, much, much bigger. And you can build from here. You've got great talent. You've got a great network. You've got some really strong VCs and a great startup community. But to impress the VCs, you almost shouldn't mention Ireland in your pitch. You should be mentioning, actually, here's how we're going to raise from the likes, or sell to the likes of Airbnb. Here's how we're going to sell to the likes of Box, to the Fortune 100. Depending on what you want to do, of course. But my advice would be, Ireland's brilliant to be based here, but think big and sell big, especially if you want to be sold to and sell from or get money from some of those really interesting VCs.
Yeah, no, excellent. And I think this echoes another panel that I would have been moderating on, which is from the very beginning, you need to think about global client base from the get-go. That's where you should be. Jonathan, the same question to you as well. You're based here.
Yep.
How do you think about Ireland? How do your investors think about you being based here and as you scale?
Yeah, I mean, we're based here because we started a small e-commerce business here that kind of won us that opportunity with Airbnb. But we've always had, what Thomas was talking about, that global vision. It's just been a base. It's been a home for the company. We're doing our Series A at the moment. Every call starts with, or halfway through, or even near the end, where are you dialing in from? It's not where's your business founded, and that's not so relevant. And yeah, I think it has reached a tipping point here in Ireland where Google, all those businesses came to Ireland as their EMEA headquarters, and the talent pool that created with that level of experience of growing those super fast hyper growth businesses, to be able to tap into that now, I think is a really interesting time in Ireland. That's helped us immensely in the last year, bringing in that talent. But yeah, and from a VC perspective, the pandemic definitely kind of leveled the playing field, I think, in that sense as well. First round is our lead VC for our seed round. It wasn't even a question. We're their first Irish investment. I think we're their second European investment, but it was a non-issue. It was just you guys are doing something really interesting. The opportunity in front of you is bigger than you have imagined, and we want to be part of it.
Which is great.
So that, it's quite exciting, but it's definitely, we're in an amazing country, but it's a small country. So it's having the vision beyond that to think really big. Just be brave and bold about it.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting, I think, so both of you have said around the talent, the access to incredible talent that actually have scaled big tech companies successfully here that you can tap into. But I think also the point you make around, which with the pandemics, there have been some kind of pluses to that, which is that you can actually raise money. And it doesn't matter where you're based. It's this virtual world we live in, which is, it's been an amazing leveler rather than hopping on planes the whole time.
What matters is what you're thinking about and the opportunity you're
Yes.
going after and your understanding of that and
Yeah.
where you're going to take it.
Yeah, excellent. And Rafa, slightly different take for you. So you're originally from Spain, and thus the reason why I got a lesson in how to say your last name. Thank you for that. And you're building a global tech company here in Ireland. So tell us about some of the benefits you perceive or you've actually experienced firsthand in building here in Ireland.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because, as you were saying, I'm not native. I'm not from here. I don't have that attachment to Ireland in general, and I didn't decide to start a business in Ireland. It was more like circumstantial. So I came here because there was some funding to start a new research lab at Trinity, and that was the reason that I was leaving Spain and leaving my friends, my family behind to continue doing my career as a scientist here. But turns out that at some point we saw that there was an opportunity, and we saw that there were different institutions and different mechanisms that would allow us to continue exploring and doing market research, with some funding, and then getting some money, also some funding from to take some idea that we had or some little prototype that we have built, let's say in a research level, and create a company with that. I think that there's a lot of support in Ireland that there's not in other places of Europe. I always, of course, compare it to Spain because that's where I'm from. But we were able to do a market research study before even considering starting the company. And that's something that is very valuable and I will totally recommend everyone to do. And that was basically subsidized by Enterprise Ireland. The Science Foundation of Ireland was funding, let's say, this research lab where we came from. And then you got, in our case, the University Bridge Fund that was specifically to take IP or technology from the university and created companies with that. I think all of those things are pretty unique from here. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here. And as I was saying, I'm not staying here because I like the rain. It's because the whole ecosystem it's perfect. It's great. And of course, I don't think anyone in Ireland should, as you guys were saying, should focus on the Irish market. I mean, we should always look outside because it's a relatively small country. But being that small, I think Ireland is, I really like this expression that you guys have. It's just like kicking above your weight, Love that expression. So I think really you're doing it very well. And that's the reason why I'm still here.
Great. And it's really, I suppose, an incredible perspective as somebody looking in internationally that the actual supports here are so strong that have enabled you to do this, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears slightly and go to you, Thomas, and ask you about, obviously you've raised over 40 million over multiple rounds. What was important to you when you went out to choose the investors that you targeted? And slightly sidebar to that is, what have you learned through that process, and is there anything you do differently?
Yeah, so I think, like, if I'm trying to give advice to startups, like if you're in a position to get investment from one, congratulations. So don't necessarily take it as an achievement to raise from anybody, but don't necessarily say you should be able to raise from absolutely everybody. So it's great to be in a position to be picky, basically. If you are picky, the advice that I'd say is VCs are great salespeople. They're designed, their entire MO is to be there to give you millions and millions of dollars. So don't necessarily believe every single thing that they're going to tell you. Some are fantastic and they will pitch in, but nobody knows your product. Nobody knows your vision. Nobody knows what's you're going to build better than you do. And nobody, no matter what they are, is going to make an effect more than they'll force you to think bigger, but nobody's going to have an effect on your business more than 5% or 10%. So don't think that by taking money from Sequoia or joining Y Combinator or something like that is going to be the next step to accelerate your business. Having said that, you should find people that are have a similar viewpoint to you, because you're going to be working with them week in, week out for the next 5-10 years, depending on how long, what your vision is. So yeah, we were very lucky with some of the people that backed us. They had the same vision. They forced us to think bigger, but realistically, find people that you can work with. And finding the right partner is just as important as finding the right firm. But yeah, be a little bit wary of VCs. Also, don't just think about Ireland. There's a lot of people, and nowadays you just have to jump on a call with somebody in the US. So
yeah. Which is actually a beautiful segue to my question to Jonathan, because Jonathan actually, as I've said earlier, himself and Kira and his other co-founder as well, they bootstrapped for several years.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, how did you know it was the right time to go out and seek external funding? And when you did, how did you think about what was important from an investor, finding the right investor?
Yeah, no, we bootstrapped for maybe 3 years, which is quite a long time. But I think you get into a place where we had a business that was it was cash generative. Like it was a profitable business. And you get sucked into the doing of that business. So you don't even like think about it. Like, we've got a business making money, let's grow this business. But then it got to a place that there was a level of inbound of other businesses saying, hey, we love what you're doing for Airbnb, can you help us with this? And to kind of make that step change in our business, we needed to kind of really accelerate beyond the cash flow we had. So that's what really made us think about taking on VC money, which we did like pretty much this time last year. And then it was about finding, like, throughout the year, probably prior to that, I think, which is really important as you're thinking about this, is like to build out a network of different touch points, because it's like you need different layers of communication going on with the VCs. Like, you need to, and it's not just VCs, I think it's also angels. Like, find out that the angel, because one or other will come in first, and there's like a whole velocity to build up around that. But like, building out that network is super important. But for us, it was about the partner over the VC. And when we met Hayley from first round, and she came in with such conviction and had such a deep understanding of what we were doing and where we'd come from as well, having built a business herself, like that, that sold it for us, and that's why first round got to lead. It was the part, and yeah, we're in the middle of a round at the moment, and it'll come down to the partner as to who we want to work with, because that's who you spend your time with. That's who you're on WhatsApp with all the time. The VC helps, but yeah, like Thomas said, they're salespeople. Like, they'll spin out so many different stories about what they'll do for you, and it'll, like, you, like, it's your hard work. Like, you have to make it happen. There's a lot of money out there. There's not so many people who are willing to give up their lives to actually
roll
make
up their
something
sleeves
happen.
and actually help you kind of push over the line. I think one of the things that you both shared yesterday, so Ciara and Jonathan and I and Philip Reynolds got on a call yesterday just to walk through this, was that actually also having really kind of good angels are a brilliant opener for getting introductions to quality VCs as well. And I think in your case that really helped you, which is something, and I think Patrick talks about this as well, you know, getting one really good angel can open up so many doors for you as well, because there's a credibility with that too,
and they're advisors, they open doors, or if nothing, like, they give you confidence as well at the beginning. Like, it's intimidating going in front of VCs, and some of them, like, they're not the friendliest, and they'll go out of their way to trip you up, and that's not easy to navigate at first. But when you find the right angels who come in and help you and make those introductions, it makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, and then the other thing just to share with you, which we covered yesterday as well, that Hayley came in with passion, huge passion around what you were doing, which instantly, from your perspectives, you knew that she was going to get into the trenches with you, which really was big. So I think the message there for everybody is do your due diligence. As much as the VC is doing due diligence on you, you do your due diligence on them too. So I'm going to ask Rafa, slightly different because you're earlier in your journey. So what have the benefits been, or what have you learned about fundraising in Ireland? Because you've also fundraised from Shore Valley Ventures, which is UK Ireland, So what have you learned?
Yeah, that's interesting. I really guess that the most important part is learning how to play their game, right? And I don't think that I'm an expert or anything like that. But you have to realize that sometimes looks like fundraising is the only solution that you have. And in some cases, we make the mistake of trying to go and search for VC money when VCs are looking for something that you might not be offering. You know, the VC money is great if you're doing one type of company, which is the company that can grow like crazy. If you're not going to create a company that can multiply their investment by 10, 20, 50, or 100, as sometimes they call it, the fund returner and things like that, then you might be wasting your time sometimes with VCs, and you might want to go better to angels or something like that. So I think that trying to learn to speak their language, you know, and try to convince them sometimes that what you're building is actually something scalable, something that's going to change how people do things. That's probably the most important part. But you also have to ask yourself, like, am I, a VC backable business or not?
Which is really important with respect to the use of your time as well. And I think you shared something yesterday, which was around that Shore Valley Ventures has a thesis in the AR, VR space. So it's also about matching for looking for investors that actually really are kind of in the sector that you are focused in. Which is
and
what
that's very related to the making your due diligence you were saying earlier, right? So sometimes we know the big names, the Sequoias, the tigers, they're all these guys, and they are the generalistic ones. But sometimes inside the fund, you will see different partners that are specifically going for one thing or the other. So if you go and approach the wrong partner, you're just wasting their time and your time.
Yeah.
So you have to really invest some time in actually building your own network and really figuring out who is the investor that is really going to help you going where you want to go. So that's why, for instance, in our case, Sure Valley made total sense, because they were specifically investing in our space. They already had a couple of companies that were they probably had the same issues that we were going to have, and so we could learn from that. And it's a really good match.
Well, I could spend all afternoon talking to the three gents, and I'm sure you would love to hear more from them. This is a short panel, because having given you the founder perspective, we're now going to actually turn to the investor perspective. So I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Menno Axt, Head of Platform, who will walk you through a wonderful interview.
Hi, my name is Menno, and I'm the head of platform at Dogpatch. And I'm delighted to be here today with George Robson, partner at Sequoia. So George, thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background and how you ended up joining Sequoia?
Menno, thank you for having us. Yeah, my name is George Robson. I joined Sequoia about 18 months ago when we opened our office in the EU. I joined from Revolut. I did lots of different things at Revolut, but mainly focused on building the consumer subscription business there. So Revolut Premium, the insurance business, things like that. And I now focus primarily on early stage investing across the EU.
And when you when you left Revolut, right, there were probably many opportunities for you. Why did you decide to go and join? Why did you decide to go to the VC side, and why did you decide to join Sequoia, I guess?
It's just a really exciting time in the European ecosystem. I think for Sequoia, we've been around for 50 years investing in early stage companies. Our relationship with Europe has often been investing slightly long range from the US for the last 12, 13 years in companies like Klarna and Unity and UiPath. But there's a special moment in time where we opened an office in London to be closer to European founders earlier in the journey. And I think just having seen much of the company building work that my partners have done over the last few years, being able to translate that to the European ecosystem is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, that really smoothly goes into my next question, because Sequoia has always focused on investing in Europe, but you could definitely say that you guys have doubled down on investing in Europe. Why now? Like, what has changed in the past few years that made Sequoia decide, like, we're going to open up an office in London and really double down on Europe, I guess?
So we want to find founders as early as we can and support them for as long as we can. In practice, what that means is coming here, we're finding founders that are building category-defining companies from Europe that have a level of global ambition. So what that means is we want to be close to those founders earlier in the journey. Having a team here on the ground, we think, is a really important way to do that, but crucially doing it as part of one team, one fund family, one partnership across the US and Europe to make sure that we can share some of those learnings from the last 50 years and translate that to the European ecosystem.
And what do you think has changed in founders in Europe that they are now better positioned to be able to build these category leading businesses than they were able to do, say, 10 years ago?
So I think firstly, just the level of ambition has never been greater. I think historically, a lot of category defining companies were coming out of the US, and then maybe for a period of time, they were being founded in Europe by Europeans, but maybe being built in the US. I think that has changed. I think now we have many proof points. I mentioned some of them. You can found and build these companies from the EU. The talent pool is there. The support in many countries from local government is there. And frankly, the level of ambition is there to mean that you can run the distance.
What do you think is the underlying reason why there has been this changed ambition, right? Like, I obviously understand there are some great companies that are coming out of Europe, right, that weren't happening before. But are there any other trends that you're seeing that really have sparked that ability to think bigger?
I think it's partly the proof points, as you say. I think the fact you have companies like a Klarna and a Unity going on and achieving that level of dominance globally. But secondly, I think that actually is the talent that comes out of those companies. I think it's about normalizing the decision to become an entrepreneur and maybe changing the risk reward that people see versus going into banking or going into consulting or some of these other wonderful industries, but actually now starting to make that tough call to found a company and try and build the future.
What do you think are the unique opportunities in Europe versus markets like the US? Like, quote unquote, I'm saying, what do you think Europe is almost potentially stronger at than the US?
I mean, obviously, Europe is a continent of like 700 million plus people.
Yeah.
We have an incredibly distributed, yes, but actually incredibly specialized talent pool across many of those countries. I think leaning into that diversity of talent is the first thing. And I think secondly, doing that in an environment where actually regulation has been a huge enabler in the EU of many industries. I think it's not luck that fintech has been such an important driver here, because actually regulation has been so progressive for so many years. I think we're actually seeing the same thing in climate. I think climate tech is going to be a huge opportunity for Europe, not just because it's so important to consumers and businesses here, but because the regulator is enabling that. And I think we have early signs that there may be similar opportunities in crypto as well.
What do you think are some of the challenges that category leading businesses are facing in Europe, and what's holding them back almost, and the mindset even as well?
I think a really sort of typical question we would get asked by founders is around sort of geographic expansion. Yeah. But I think it's natural, depending which country you're coming out of, to feel a pressure to kind of increase your market size, go to new geographies and expand. I think there are challenges that come with that. Some of them are logistical, right? So actually just thinking about how to build a playbook to go to a new market. Some of them are cultural, because you start to have maybe a distributed team slightly earlier in the journey than you might otherwise like, and that introduces pressures on the way that you do on your business, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are all, beautiful quirks of operating in Europe, problems that many companies have solved and we help founders solve. So, it's all within your reach, but it's something that comes maybe with being in Europe versus in the US.
If there's one tip that you would be able to give a European founder that you think like your American counterparts but doing better, what would be your advice be? Because you obviously have a very global perspective on this, right? Like you said, one team, one family, right, between US and Europe here. So like you obviously speak to your US counterparts and look at their deals and vice versa. Like what would be your advice? What would your advice be?
I think, and this might be sort of non-obvious, but actually it's around company culture. I think very much of culture as a sort of collective basis for decision making. In many ways, it's what people do, how they choose option A over option B when nobody's looking. Yeah. And in practice, what that means is codifying your culture, i.e. writing it down as a living, breathing document early on in the journey is incredibly important. And I think normalizing that, not in a way of like, big comments and bullet points on your website, but very much more on a day-to-day, on what basis do we make decisions is incredibly important, particularly if you have distributed and or remote teams that you need to make sure are involved as well.
Yeah. You guys Sequoia recently made their first investment in Ireland in Everfold. And I know that this is a market that you're interested in. From your perspective, how do you think about the opportunity for founders to build category leading businesses in Ireland?
I mean, if you look at Shane from Evervolt, and also, I'd extend that to John and Patrick from Stripe, right? And we've been working with Stripe now for 10 plus years. Yeah. If you look at those founding teams, they're incredibly young, incredibly smart, technical, and obviously insanely ambitious, right, in terms of what they want to build. I think the interesting piece about that is leaning into that incredible breadth of homegrown talent and some of these wonderful technical universities and people coming out who are just very entrepreneurial by nature. But two, recognizing that is complemented by having a very large number of some of the leading technology companies on the planet set up in the country and actually with, different functions, right? So you have sales, you get a market expertise, product and engineering, you have all of the pieces you need to build an exceptional company. And what that means is on a forward-looking basis for Ireland, you can solve everything, inside the borders, actually, from a talent perspective. And that gives you an unfair advantage to get moving.
Super. And what have you seen, like you've been in the London ecosystem for quite a while. What do you think is something that you're seeing over there that we should look at, right? And being like, you should transfer that back into Ireland, back into Dublin for yourself?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 points. One, just playing your own game. And what I mean by that is if you look at the success of London as an ecosystem, and you can slice it different ways, but for example, looking at the largest companies that have come out of London, most of them have been in fintech, right? And I think that's no coincidence. If you look at the kind of profile of the city of London, financial services hub for hundreds of years, you have these incredible related talent pools. You also have a lot of understanding of the frustrations of maybe some of these larger banks and how they operate. And it's a response to that. So it's sort of playing your own game because you have an unfair advantage to have insights. into that market opportunity. I think it's the same thing. I think it's leaning into the fact that the texture of the talent pool actually is out of many of these tech companies. That's great from a talent and execution standpoint. It's also great from a learning standpoint, right? So leaning into those discussions. And then point two is, just normalizing this decision to go and found a company, work at a technology company, go into entrepreneurship, and not necessarily take, the safer, more traveled route.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, and it's about normalizing that, and it's getting more people in the industry as well. On a macro perspective, right? Like zooming a bit out again, right? What areas and sectors are you most excited about right now? Like you mentioned climate tech, but like what's really sparking your interest these days?
Yeah, maybe mention two things. One, we just announced a new $600 million crypto fund, which is exciting for us because it means we can double down on how we support a whole mix of different crypto and Web3 founders. So actually investing much more in liquid public tokens, thinking about DAO governance from a Sequoia perspective. There's kind of work to do there. I think that's point one. I think point two is, we sometimes assume that many of these technology trends we've seen sometimes over the last 10 years are solved problems, if you like. To give two examples of things that are not, one is the idea of the migration to the cloud of enterprises. I think it's like 20% of enterprises have made that transition. So that is a problem that will run for the next decade plus. And I think this big theme of the rise of the digitization of SMBs in Europe is incredibly important. There are 25 million businesses here, SMBs here. About 20% of them have any software in their operations. That is a huge opportunity to go and change how small businesses run.
You always have a global perspective on the market. Are there any macro trends that you're seeing with startups and with funding that you can share some thoughts and insights around?
Yeah, I think so. There's been a little bit of a correction in the public markets, obviously over the last few months. That has more of an impact naturally on kind of later stage companies and pre-IPO companies. I think for early stage businesses, the challenges are still the same, right? It's about taking this unique and hopefully compelling insight you have, finding your customers, building the core team, thinking about how to set up the playbook for scaling. So I think that actually, in a general sense, it doesn't change focus necessarily. And I would also maybe go a step further and say that scarcity to an extent can focus the mind. So it might mean that for early stage founders, when they think about spending capital, how to deploy that, efficiency has always mattered. Maybe it matters more now, but it actually has always mattered.
Well, and I was also recently listening to your partner who was on 20 VC with Harry Stebbings, and the upside still and the early stage is so big, right? So there is still so much to be made and so much to be grown over there. Sequoia invests in a lot of early stage founders that went on to do great things. What are the things that you look for in early stage founders, and are there any like non-obvious consistent signals across these founders? And I know it's a bit of a difficult question, but keen to get your insights.
So I think there's definitely no one size fits all, but like if you think about our job, it's to understand why these smart, motivated people are committing their time and energy, right? And taking sometimes quite large risks to go out and build the future. So a big bit of that when we speak with people is trying to understand like what is the unique and compelling insight you have, right, into an important problem. Specifically, unique meaning different, compelling meaning better. And what is it about the team and like your set of experiences that gives you an unfair advantage in going out to solve this? I think that is, that's kind of makes sense. I think one thing that sort of evaluates that a little bit though is self-awareness, right? Because founding an early stage company is quite humbling because often, you'll do things that you think make sense. They won't work out as planned. You're behind schedule, you're ahead of schedule, you're delighted, there are highs and lows. And I think just having a sense of, being on this learning curve, being on this trajectory, not just as a company and as a team, but as a founder, and recognizing that you need to evolve and grow over time is incredibly important. So self-awareness, really matters in these early conversations because we need to believe that we're going to have, an honest, transparent relationship going forwards, and that, as an operator, you will continue to find your, best shape over time.
Are there any things that you could say that generally have like turned you away from investing in teams? Like, are there any like no-nos, I guess, that you've seen on teams that you would want to share with the founders that are tuning in today?
Yeah, I think I would, and it comes back to a theme I mentioned in a different context of playing your own game. I think sometimes founders might assume that there is the right way to be a CEO or the right way to run a business. And the answer is maybe on a principle level, there might be, right? We could ask about, we could argue about the philosophy of it. But actually, in the reality is like you have your own personality, you have your own way of managing teams and managing people. You should feel confident, during the investment process, during trying to make a decision, whether to bring Sequoia or somebody else on board as your partner, just to represent your true self. Yeah. So often when we spend a little bit more time in a process, it's trying to get to that because we might feel that somebody has, a vision in mind of the founder profile we're looking for. It doesn't exist, right? It's about finding the right fit between the company and the team and your own personality.
George, we got to wrap up, but there's many founders tuning in today. What would be the top tips for a startup? What would be your top tip that you would want to share with a startup that's listening today?
It's spend time as a team. A, codify your culture. B, think about this unique and compelling insight you have and recognize as you go from being a pre-seed or a seed stage company, hopefully to a venture stage business, about finding what that unique insight is and building a kind of kernel around it. Yeah. Really, the problem statement is how can you go from that to finding a small number of people who really care about your product. So don't focus on kind of headline metrics, revenue, total user growth in the early days. Focus on these second order metrics of usage, user love, engagement, retention, and help identify this small subset of users who really care about what you're doing.
Fantastic. George, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for your insights. I genuinely really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, always. Thank you.
Well, that's it, folks. What did you think about today? The startups, the speakers, was there anything that was a highlight or an insight? Drop it in the chat box. Is there anything you want to say to the founders? Did you have any favorite startups? Thank you for the comments so far. Keep them coming as we kind of wrap up. So look, to wrap, just a few quick thank yous. Firstly, to our EIORs who have coached and mentored the teams every week. They spend a day a week, each of these, on the accelerator, from the former MD of Techstars London to the chief strategy officer of a NASDAQ company to the chief of staff of Virgin Hyperloop. We're so lucky to have people of this quality working so closely with the teams. Thank you to our mentors and fireside chat speakers. There's been such goodwill here from across the ecosystem, from founders to VC firms in Ireland, in Europe, and across the world. I'd also really like to thank our board of directors, which represents a diverse cross-section of ecosystem stakeholders and have been a huge support. And also to the Dogpatch team, who have brought their own skills and passion to bear in so many different ways. A particular shout out to Sarah Barker, our program director of the Accelerator. She's worked so incredibly hard. Thank you, Sarah. And to Menno Axt, our head of platform, to our Accelerator associates, Maria, Jack, Zur, and Keith. Thank you, guys. This is a big day for you too. And last, by no means least, I'd like to really a special thank you to Philip Reynolds, our Accelerator MD. To have a former VP of engineering from a major tech company who was an entrepreneur, an angel investor, has been a major win for this accelerator. You would not believe his commitment to the teams, the value that he's added to this cohort and the previous cohort as well. And he's incredibly passionate about building this ecosystem. He's been an invaluable member of the team, and a special thanks to you, Philip. We really, really appreciate it. So, we've just switched live our applications for the next accelerator, and we're going to be deciding that in the next 10 weeks. So come talk to us in office hours or apply for the next pre-accelerator, or the iHub, and Kerry is running that, and they just open applications as well. So look, thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone involved. Well done to the startups, the founders, and the teams. We'll see you in another 6 months for our next demo day. Slán, thank you and goodbye.